Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming back to the afternoon session of this International IPR Stakeholders meeting. So in the afternoon, we're going to take more an industrial perspective. We'll have here members of the ICT and pharma industries that have both a corporate experience as SME or enterprise owners, and also a macro experience because they direct industry groups. So we're going to have both perspectives and more inside the industry. So I'm gonna let them introduce themselves as a quick introduction.
Okay, hi, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Nuno Ferreira. I am the head of research at I2S. I2S develops software for the insurance industry. It has been doing so for over 30 years now. And software is an interesting asset. It's intangible, but it's also subject to copyright laws. So I'm talking about here today about my experience in this subject and on the internationalization challenges that we are facing while moving on to other locations than our home country, Portugal.
Thank you.
I'm Ahmed Bouzidi. I'm the CEO of a company called Vaxeal, based, headquartered in Switzerland. The company specializes in immuno-oncology, so it's a pure biotech company. And I am also the president of the European Federation, European Biopharmaceutical Enterprises, which is a trade association located in Brussels, federating companies from SMEs to worldwide leaders.
Hi, my name is Bastian Joly. I'm the founder and CEO of the startup Good IP. What we do is we connect scientists, researchers, innovators that have interesting technologies with growing tech companies that want to purchase or license technologies. My background is really a corporate one. I worked for Osram, the lighting company, and before that for the semiconductor Atlantic, which is now part of Intel. Before that, I was a lawyer in a US law firm, and I look very much forward to speaking with you about IP monetization today and IP licensing.
Good afternoon. I'm Jon Echanove. I'm currently the team leader of an European Commission project called EU Gateway Business Avenues. And what we do, we select European companies across the 28 member states in different sectors. We coach them on internationalization, on market opportunities in different countries, and then we send them to Asia for a week to do business. I myself have been involved in trade facilitation in Asia for already many, many years, China, Southeast Asia, and also Central Asia. Happy to be here.
Good afternoon. My name is Delphine Roulland. I'm Director of Policy and Government Affairs at EUCOPE. EUCOPE is a trade association here in Brussels at a European level that gives voice to small and mid-sized innovative companies in the field of biopharmaceuticals, medical technologies and diagnostics companies. And today I will give a view on the importance of IP in channeling investments in order to pursue the drug development and bring it to the market. I would also already like to apologize because I will have to leave at 3 o'clock for another meeting. So if you see me running, it's not that I'm fearing any questions, it's just that I have to go somewhere else. Thank you.
Thank you, Delphine. And I'm Andrea Caballe. I'm the IP expert of the China IP SME Helpdesk, and I have 7 years' experience in mainland China. So to start, I'd like to know a little bit more, what are the main challenges that SMEs found on those two industries related to IP or internationalization in a broader sense? So anybody who would like to take the question?
Yes, I can start. I would like to say, first of all, I think it's essential to understand that IP for an innovative SME is not only essential, it's vital. Because that's the first asset of the company. Intangible assets are essential in order to value your company, in order to raise funds, in order even to out-license your product if needed, or to sell them, So that's why it's a primary focus for an innovative SME, not only in the field of biopharma or pharma, but in any field of innovation. So when we talk about IP in the life science sector, it's pretty schizophrenic, because everybody is pro-innovation, but when you talk about translation of innovation, which is the intellectual property, there you have different voices. Because some people, the public, do believe that protecting an invention, an innovation, would limit access of new medicines to the patients. And this is, and moreover, I would say that also can be a tool to increase pricing. And we don't think it's true, but that's a message we have to deliver on a daily basis. The objective is to innovate, to propose to the patients the best innovation in terms of drugs, and at the most affordable price possible, considering that now the R&D processes take about 12 years, cost about 1.5 billion, and if you want to reward innovation and if you want to be innovative, you have to sell your product at the right price. And that's the discussion we can have with payers today, in the field of pharma.
Yeah, it's interesting, the field of pharma, normally people don't associate SMEs to that field because of what you just said, 12 years of research, 1.5 billion. So it doesn't seem SMEs could enter that industry. So
you are right. That's why, especially in Europe, compared to our competitors or to our colleagues, in the US on one hand, and in China more and more today, it's difficult to now. It's quasi impossible to raise 1 or 2 billion, in order to be able to launch a new product. So that's why the standard business model of biotech innovative SMEs is to out-license the product after performing what we call the clinical proof of concept. As the innovators, we demonstrate that this product is efficient and safe at mid-scale, I would say, 100, 200 patients. And after that, we out-license the product to big pharma who are finalizing the process, the clinical process of product development. They are selling, distributing, and so on. So that's a new model, which is today, I would say, a quasi-standard in the biopharma and pharmaceutical industry today.
Yeah, I would just add to that. I completely agree with Ahmed. I think, contrary to general belief, there are quite a few universities that are spun out into startups or SMEs, and indeed then IP is an asset in the sense that without this, which serves as a tool, you cannot attract any investments. And we have quite a few members, and you have IP and incentives, which in a pharma sector are very much linked. And if you don't have this to prove that you can actually go and protect your invention for 20 years, and if you obtain further protection, SPC, another 5 years, then you cannot convince the investors, whether it is private equity, venture capitalists, or if you at some point want to go on public listing, you cannot convince them. It's simple as that. And as Ahmed mentioned, the drug development has increased over the years. So now we indeed see it between 10 and 15 years. So when you ask for, when you file for a patent application, for you to go through the entire process of research and clinical trials before actually being able to market it on and provide it to the patients, there's already 15 years that have gone by. So you actually have only 5 years protection once you are able to sell the product, the medicinal product. And the question of returns on investments is an important one in order also to reassure your investors that they will be able to get this is written.
Yes, talking about monetization of IP, I understand that Dr. Bastien is an expert on this. So if you have a few tips or you can share the challenges that SMEs might found.
Yeah, so I think that's really a challenge for SMEs, but also for larger companies, to either license out their IP or to sell it. I think we all heard this morning how you protect IP, and that's very important. You find what's the USP of your product and go out. And I think the help desk can really help there, really in the first instances that you can reach out to them and speak with them. And I think it's really important to learn about how you protect your IP. But very often, then you're alone with that. I mean, if you're really just looking for a partner, I mean, today there's a huge hype about startups that really want to bring products to market, but there are so many inventors, research scientists that come up with great stuff and really don't know how and to transfer it to industry, to corporate partners. So we know that just only 3% of all technologies are ever transferred. So just imagine what a huge potential we have in European universities, in European research centers to achieve more. The problem is really that you have to go through 3 steps, and that's the challenge that they have. Number 1, you really have to prepare your IP. So when you file the IP, when you think about what you want to do, you have to make sure that you have your licensing case right there at the beginning. So that you write your patent, that you write your copyright in a way that it's really interesting. So have the protection through patent, but also have know-how and copyright on the sidelines. And that's really where really already a lot of stuff goes wrong. So that's the first challenge, to prepare it. The most significant challenge is the second one, and that's finding the right partner. We'll speak about that in a second. The third one is maybe then again easy. That's just negotiating a contract after you found a partner. So what we really do as a startup is focusing on the second point, finding the right partners. And what we'd want to do there is really being a recommendation platform. So we think really from the purchaser side or from the licensee side. So from all the European companies, but also companies in Asia and the US that are looking for interesting stuff. But at the moment have the problem that they always just get presented the wrong stuff. So stuff that doesn't interest them. So what we are doing is being a recommendation platform where we only present that stuff to the companies that's interesting for them. And that really lowers the burden of this was not invented here, I don't want to look at it, because they only get presented 1 or 2 things a month, which is interesting for them. But this is really the challenge for the SME, preparing their stuff in the right way. If they want to do a licensing business, they're very successful companies in the licensing business. And number 2, finding the right partner.
Yes. I think I agree fully with you. I mean, we send hundreds of companies to Asia. The key is to find the right partner. Who is the company on the other end of the world that can help you develop your product? I have a different take on the question. When we have companies that have a trademark or have an IP, the question that I always ask myself is why they haven't registered or why they haven't protected when they go to Asia. It's just like a no-brainer. You would do it. One of the reasons for that is that a lot of companies take a very opportunistic approach to internationalization. It's like, I go there once, and if there's business, then I do my homework. And instead of having your strategy ahead, saying what is my strategy, what can I license? And I think that's the real problem. We need to help companies to understand that accessing markets like Asia requires a sustained effort and a strategy. It is not enough to be there just once, and it's a high risk if you don't stay there and you have a strategy. And it is not enough to know there is growth or potential business there. You have to have your own research, your own understanding of what those business partners are looking for. And depending on what they're looking for, then you set up your strategy, business strategy, including your IP strategy.
Let me just add something up to that. From our experience, it's not only when you want to reach out new markets or to startups. Even for the incumbents, you have the same challenges. Sometimes when they want to broaden their internal market, they face the same challenges. They cannot identify when launching a new product that they need to protect it. This challenge is even harder to achieve when you want to go to a place you've never been before. So first, I think they need to be aware that they need to protect what they create new before they start selling it. And then when they go to a new place, know the specifics of that location and be prepared for them beforehand. And I think that companies, SMEs, are not aware of this today.
I think that SMEs do the reverse.
Yeah.
The first test, if there's an opportunity, I put my strategy in place. Sometimes purely of lack of resources, getting your strategy right, understanding what you have to do, it takes a lot of time and effort. I mean,
and the time to market is essential for a business. It depends on the market or the domain you are dealing with. In software, what you do, if you open your mouth, there are tens or hundreds of companies doing the same, even better than yours. The research process, it's not a 12-year cycle, but it's shorter, way shorter. But it also takes huge effort. And once you release a novelty to the market, there are many smart guys that are able to copy what you do and put it faster in the market.
Yes, as an IP expert and advisor in China, I see that often companies, especially ICT and pharma, they're well aware of IP. It's not that they don't know that their product is IP intensive, and they're well aware that it's the core of the value. But as you say, when they come they go to trade fair to see what's up, and without protecting anything, displaying everything. And then they realize that when they want to actually really enter the market, it's maybe too late for what they displayed. So they don't do a strategy beforehand. What do you think there's this lack of information when going abroad? Or lack of awareness of foreign markets?
Yeah, I'll tell you about a case that happened to us when we thought in going to Mexico. Before setting our foot there, we asked ourselves and asked the help desk, what do we need to do? And everybody alerted us for something that we were unaware, is that when we go to a fair, people will copy our brand. So register it before going there first time. So we did. Then we found out who can partner with us. After the screening and the selection process, we made a non-disclosure agreement with them and give them training on our products and deposited our software locally. But is this enough? We ask. We don't know. We must rely on services that we SMEs cannot have for ourselves, but the help desk has, to give us the correct information or to guide us or routing us to the people who can give us the correct information. For instance, if I deposit a version of my source code, is it protected? But I release new versions every week. I must deposit a new one. Am I protected right now? These are real challenges that we face in my internal market or in my international market. And these kind of questions should be answered. These and others harder than these.
Sure.
Yes, I would add that we have understood, we say it, you have to build an IP portfolio, because as we mentioned, your Princeps patent will be off, also will be on sale. So you have to, on each improvement, to patent it, so it's finished to cost a lot of money and to be a real burden. So you have to anticipate that when you create a patent portfolio in order to protect your innovation and your products. Then you have to indeed have the knowledge of the market. So I spent 6 years in China. I work in China since the late 90s and until today. And I decided from 2003 to 2009 to live there and to try to understand how the business mind in China, what I have understood. They have a complete different view of what a stage of product development is. When we talk about an early stage product development in Europe or in the US, we talk about phase 1. It means really just start the clinical trials. In China, when you talk about early stage, it's phase 3. which means you're two years from market.
Yeah.
So you have just to understand that, and then you understand how to build a business with them. Because finally, if you are at the right stage with the right product, it's easy to sell or to out-license a product. It's very easy to raise funds and to sell it. In China, you just have to know that if you are at pre-IPO or if you are at late stage product development, you will find plenty of money. If you arrive with an early stage company, just stick to Europe and the US, more mature markets. So, and it's the case with a lot of third countries. You know, I think that we can mimic the model in South America, in India, and other Southeast countries, you know, in Asia, and probably tomorrow in Africa. You know, that it's really essential to understand that it's multicultural. We are thinking different. You have to understand their business mind, and from there you can build a successful business strategy with them.
So how to get that info? Oh, sorry.
Sorry, just to quickly build on that, I think it's certainly the financial and administrative burdens in trying to gain IP are non-negligible. The procedures are particularly lengthy. The requirements can be particularly difficult to understand, and you have to put yourself in the shoes of the person that is, in our case, for instance, a scientist. He has no clue about IP law, so he has to find a patent lawyer, and that is particularly costly again. So we always come down to that major issue, but it has to be taken into account. So ideally, you should file for IP universally all around the world, but then you have to make choices which result sometimes in the fact that you're trying to be more opportunistic in the market, and you face direct competition which you cannot fight because you don't have the IP to be enforced. But yeah.
And how do you think it would be the best strategy to get that type of information out there? Because we see a lot of times companies don't know and they're not well aware or informed of markets outside the more mature markets like US, EU. So yeah, I think that is for Jon mainly. And
but I think that SMEs are flooded with information that they have to internationalize. Yeah, it's like you have to go there. It's great. I think that we have to be more selective about what is that message. Internationalization is hard work. It's really hard work. So it's not just about trying here and there. It's about a long process of identifying what's your value to the market, understanding what is the market that you go in. Am I too early? Am I too late? Yeah? Understanding how, depending on what is the market, how I'm going to position my IP there, what kind of a strategy and value can I sell there. And all those things take a lot of time before you decide to internationalize. And I think that one of the things that we should all try from intermediaries, projects, companies, is to somehow say, yes, it is great to internationalize, but there is a checklist of the things that you should know before you go to the market.
And do.
You should and do. Yeah?
So,
and it takes, and it might say that someone say, woof, but that's too much for me. I can't do that. But maybe you're saving money, because if you go without all this, you're taking a huge risk. And it's no guarantee you're going to get business. Let's be clear, you can go very well prepared to China or to Southeast Asia. Will you find the right partner? Timing is an issue, so maybe you go with 3-4 competitors and you lose the business, even if you have done all the homework. So I think that we have to push companies to say, yes, it is great that you want to internationalize. Make sure that you have done it in Europe. Make sure that you have the experience of going abroad, at least within the European market, that you have gone to some mature markets before, so you have the experience, and then try. Get to China, get to Southeast Asia, or get to Latin America. Yeah.
So going back to what you were just saying, maybe internationalization is not for everybody or for every company. So you were mentioning a few golden tips. So I would ask everybody if they have a few golden tips of for companies to know, am I ready? Should I go there? Should I even spend time building up the strategy or getting the information that I'm floating with? Is that worth it? So what would be like a few Just, I know it's a very big question, but it's just a few ideas that companies might ask themselves.
You know, in our sector, in the healthcare sector, we meet very often, you know, a lot of congresses, a lot of meetings worldwide. And often it's coming from a request, from a need, a local need. I had it. That's how I went to China. I had the right product at the right time, and the Chinese company needed it at that time. So it has been really an opportunity coming from a Chinese request. And it has worked. But the implementation was not that easy, because, you know, China, private sector, okay, but you also have to work with the politics, you know, you have to lobby and so on. So, and finally, it took 2 years to complete the deal, to close the deal. We made a big deal, so I'm very happy at the end. So, but a need was there. It was a diagnostics company, and the need was there. And often, finally, it's coming that way. You don't decide, I think nobody decides, I go tomorrow to Argentina, make my business, you know. No, that's opportunities, you know, people, you build a network, or during a meeting, boom, puff, affinity, it's all work fantastically, because the guy you are talking to need what you have. And it's often working that way.
That sounds like an ideal scenario. Is that the same experience for the other members?
I absolutely agree. I think that, but also I take something which is true. It took 2 years in your case to get. I think that is the reality of most of the SMEs. From the moment the opportunity is there to the moment you're there, you have to invest a lot of time. If you're not ready, and money. So if you're not ready for those 2 years to get the business, then you don't have an opportunity. The opportunity comes with investment, with time.
Yeah. But something that you have mentioned all before, and I think it's a key take, you should know your market. You should know somewhere that is operating there and get some insights from them. I think that would give us leverage when entering a new market.
Yes, you should know, yeah. And I don't know if you have...
I think that one of the things that I'm always very pleased to see when we send business missions to Asia is how the European companies that we bring in exchange information precisely on things like that. You know, on getting insights of people from there. There are some companies that have more experience in the market and are quite willing to share information about what is reliable, what is not reliable, how the market works. And I think sharing information among companies normally works very well. Obviously, if it's not your competitor, but if it's within the value chain.
On that note, I'm doing a bit of a self-advertisement there, but I think trade associations are actually very useful, in particular for companies when they enter a new market that they don't know. We have more and more, for instance, American companies joining our trade association because they have to understand how the markets behave. And it's quite novel because there's not one market in Europe, but 27, 28. Don't know which one we should say. Let's say half. So it's a great opportunity to first get to know, well, your competitors or the other players on the market, but also to really gain information. And that remains, I think, an interesting platform to look for.
Yeah, that's what we were saying before about how to get information out there, how to not flood SMEs with information, and also we know how have you seen around you, according to your members or your own experience, is there a much more interest for going abroad? Is there much more interest to go outside the EU? Do you perceive this as opposed to 5-10 years ago? Yeah.
It's difficult to answer yes, because we are in Brussels, in front of the European Commission. But I would say that you have two models, you know, of economical development. You know, the US one, we know it since 1958 is performing fantastically well, and you have a new one coming, you know, very aggressive, hungry, is China, and Europe. What I feel, I'm in this business in 30 years now, every year we are losing market shares. We become less and less attractive, competitive. Yet we feel it. As CEO of SMEs, we feel it.
Yeah.
More and more difficult to get access to funding. We are a European company. We are funded mainly by US VCs. You imagine?
Yeah.
And one fund is US Chinese VC fund. Well, we have some UK partners. Will be out of EU soon, apparently. But they remain European. But it's true. I think that what is done within the European Commission, it's good. They really, the SME instrument this morning, we talk about it. It's a good incentive. When you go to France, you have the research tax credit. It's a great incentive. The problem is access to large funds. It's impossible in Europe, and there are two reasons. Privately, no fund is capitalized enough, no VC fund is capitalized enough in Europe to invest 250 million in a company. It does not exist in Europe. You go to San Francisco and you have buildings with tens of VC funds able to invest $500 million in a company. You go to China, Shanghai, Beijing, Shenzhen, you have exactly the same now. 10 years ago, it didn't exist.
Yes.
No way. Today, multi-billion funds in China, there are plenty of them today. In Europe, none. The second problem we have with funding is the public market. I don't remember if it's 14 or 17 stock markets in Europe,
Yes.
But no one with the depth of NASDAQ, which means that even you make an IPO on the public market in one of the 14 or 17 places, I don't remember, in Europe, you cannot raise 200 million, 300, 400. It's impossible. So, and you know what the Chinese are doing now? They are creating a NASDAQ-like in Shanghai.
Yes, yeah.
So we have a problem in Europe. So, and sometimes, when I am an optimistic, but sometimes I have some spleen, and I say, do we want to remain actors, or do we want to become viewers of the evolution of innovation? I remain convinced that Europe will react, because Europe is a big continent. We certainly need more Europe, more federation, less cross-border differences or fragmentation. So I am optimistic, but it's really time to react vigorously, I would say, in order to compete again, with equal weapon, with the S and the WISWAC squeezing us, actually.
How could an SME understand the value of their IP portfolio before they go search for funds?
As I say in my preamble, you don't have to understand or not, you have it or you die. So you know that it's vital for your company. So you have to build a sustainable, strong, consolidated IP portfolio, or you cannot survive. The competition is too hard. You need to develop specialty drugs, in our case, or you will compete with thousands of competitors producing generics and biosimilars. Yes. That's not what we want. We want to innovate.
Yeah.
Yes, I would like to add on that and perhaps nuance the praise about European IP. I think there's great IP in place, but we've seen in particular in the field of life sciences over the years more and more criticism towards intellectual property, because for some, according to some, it may be linked to high pricing, and I think there's a big misunderstanding there. And the fear is, or the risk is, that actually you may reduce the IP protection, which is, if you take the perspective of a country or a region like Europe, the element in order to remain competitive globally and to attract further investments and to be at the forefront of innovation research. So do you actually, the question is, that we've asked ourselves in the past is, do you want Europe to be the research hub, a research hub in Europe, or do you want it to be a place for tourists to travel to? And if you want it to be a place where you continue innovating, then you need to protect the IP. And we see that there is more competition coming from China, also in terms of IP protection. So in the life sciences sector, they are currently doing work on improving the patent law system and also looking into regulatory data protection. So China is advancing. It's no longer the place that was known as the generic manufacturers hub. It's trying to be more innovative as well, and we have to pay attention to that.
Yes, I absolutely agree. We see that we were talking about universities, so going to that field of research. Because the China IPR Helpdesk or all the international helpdesk offer also advice to universities to navigate these territories for them to better protect their IP. So how do you think, what is your experience in the research field or of your members with that about internationalizing their research centers or the results of their research here?
I think the problem is always money and time. Same for SMEs and for universities. Those are the limiting factors. And I think we are saying, when you're thinking about where to file, you're saying we demand this and this and this from you. But what they have to answer is time and money. And money is the most important thing. How much money do you have? Where do you file? What do you protect? And your question was really, what's the value in the portfolio? And I think the important point is that really when you start with filing your IP, that you're thinking about why am I filing? And that's a bit of time you have to put in. And I think the most important part is to ask, why is my competitor envying me? What makes me special? That can be your trademark. And if it's your trademark and you're going into China, then you need to protect your trademark. If it's your technology, then go after that technology. And that's a question you have to ask at some point, that makes your portfolio valuable. That makes your trademark valuable, makes your patent valuable, but maybe it's just the design of your product. Maybe you have a cool user interface. And at the beginning, you won't have anything. You're a small startup. Maybe you're alone. You're one founder, 2, 3 founders. There you just have to protect the essential, but always ask the question, what makes me special? And then you have to take that time from time to time and also speak with people like you at the help desk to understand how I can protect that then. But I think that nobody can take that from you, that you have to find out what is important, which market is important, and where is my competitive edge. And that's really, I think, the message that we have to transport to the SMEs. I mean, I'm a storyteller, so I'm saying really this is the story that I tell whenever I look at a startup or an SME, what's special about them? And then ask the question, is that protected?
Yes, absolutely. As in the IP, well, in the China help desk, but it goes also to the other help desk. We often see a few myths that go around. So companies come and say, well, there's no rule of law in China, so it's not worth it to protect. Maybe I'll go there with my old technology, sell it all, and then try to be innovative. So do you find other myths that comes up for both industries in each region, like Latin America, Southeast Asia, China?
In order to rationalize, an IP portfolio and to reduce as possible costs, of internationalization, what do we do in the company? We say, which country could be able to manufacture my product?
Yeah, that's good advice.
That is first tick. And the second tick is this new medicine affordable for these countries? And that's how you select at the end the countries you will file in. It allows you to cut, I would say, 90% of countries are deleted, removed. Now it's true that 10 years ago nobody was filing in China. Yes. Now we understand that India we start all, Russia we sometimes yes, sometimes no, depending on the product you are patenting. Africa no, South America very few countries, Brazil. Asia more and more. It's becoming expensive in Asia. But it's really this, you have to find the rationale because you know it will be expensive. Your portfolio will be a burden for you, and you will have to fight in order to protect your asset. But then after that, you have to think as a CEO and say, yes, but I cannot patent everywhere. I'm not able to do that. I cannot afford that. Then you start thinking, can they pay it? Can they do it? And then from there, you build an IP international strategy.
Yeah, that's a really good advice. I don't know if there's other input on that sense.
Well, in my line of business, we have software. We have software that is deployed on premises. We have software that is available on cloud. Software on premises, it's relatively easy to protect, so we know who's using it. We have trademarks on the target countries. But software on cloud, it's not as easy. I'm not sure if a software company from Zimbabwe wants to copy my idea and they use it. And I must trademark my brand there. It's impossible. It's unfeasible. What we would like, an universal trademark office or a world trademark office.
Yeah.
That would be good. What else would we like? It's someone to look from time to time to the existing trademarks, and if someone wants to register a new one, stop it. That one already exists. You cannot register it actively, not passively, as it exists. That would be way easier for us, companies that invest a lot in research, in development and into deployment of solutions, innovative solutions for the global market, to keep on investing on innovation and to keep delivering new value to the world and being protected at the same time.
Yeah. Can I have your insight on Southeast Asia? What are the main challenges you see, or SMEs that go there?
Some of the myths around Southeast Asia. I think that one of the things we face a lot in the current project is that companies tend to overestimate Singapore. European companies, we think we have a wonderful technology. I'm sure that in Singapore it will work. And Singapore is already 20 years ahead. So it's not necessarily, Singapore is a very competitive market. It's not necessarily the place where you want to sell, unless you really have ticked off the boxes, and that's what it is. And companies tend to underestimate the rest of the countries. It's like, whoa. As you said, China is this place, a wild place, similar to, why would I go to Vietnam? Why would I go to the Philippines? Reality is that they are better organized than what we think. There are better opportunities. And the problem is, as you say, it's time to market. Is this my time to be in this market, yes or no? Yeah. I mean, is my product ready for it, or do I have to wait 3 or 4 more years' time? I think that's the lack of understanding of what are the actual opportunities in the non-Singaporean ASEAN countries is one of the myths. It's a long way to go, but there are a lot of opportunities, and they are better organized in terms of, Marta can tell us, in terms of IP than what it looks up front.
Yes, sure.
When we tried to trademark our brand in, I think it was in Mexico, we faced a lot of trouble. As people this morning told, they took a lot of siestas. I don't know if that's true or not, but it took a couple of years to have our trademark recognized.
That's long.
We cannot wait that long to do business. We would be dead. So what can we do to speed up this process, to make it agile?
So sometimes one might miss the window because of a bureaucratic or administrative or long process in certain jurisdictions. So it would be good to know it ahead, right? Or
yes.
How do you think you could sort of avoid that issue that you had?
Well, in my line of business, I start researching a new product. I have it ready to market in a couple of years or less, sometimes in a couple of months. it's unfeasible for me to wait a couple of years to have it protected before launching it. I would be completely dead. What can be done? I'm not quite sure what can be done. But some light protection, some global protection, some kind of thing that covers us when entering into a new market with a new product. We have the idea, in the early stage we register it, then a couple of months later we are ready to market. Okay, we have the initial requirement done, that is enough. In some markets yes, in some markets no, but it should be valid in all markets.
So that's the general experience for Latin America, or is it specific to Mexico?
Brazil, we had the same issue, but it was easier. In our particular case, it was way easier. We trademarked it without a problem. We registered our existing software also without any problem.
So yeah, I could see that the challenges in what it seems this region is more how long things could take. I know it's
the opposition
the
that is
the
made,
opposition,
people who tries to steal our brand.
Okay, there's active.
They are active, very,
yeah.
very active.
Okay,
Yes.
yeah, I wouldn't think so of Latin America. I know China is active, and also the language barrier could be difficult.
Yes.
So when we were talking about Southeast Asia, is the lack of.
It depends on the
yeah.
countries, but yeah, there are countries more involved. I was listening to the siestas, and when I was living in China, some of the processes were just impossible to do being a foreigner in a reasonable time frame. I mean, it was just impossible. Something that a Chinese would take 2 weeks, for me would be 7 months, a year. Yeah. And that is one of the things where I was just thinking that we insist a lot in finding the right partner, because accessing a market very often requires to have a local support there that helps you navigate all those elements. And we have quite a number of companies that are still in the belief that if I have a good product, I will go there and someone will buy it, and I don't need anyone on the ground to help me that is a local. And I think that finding a right partner to get things like the IP, but product registrations, certifications, if you don't have someone local, you will get through a lot of siestas, and you will probably lose the time to market.
Yeah, sure. So, and so generally, I understand could you explain a little bit more the EU Gateway, how this tool help SMEs to find the right partner to go to Southeast Asia?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that we do not only on the IPR, but on the is precisely helping them understand what is so special about them. And we have a coaching methodology it focuses on helping them being able to articulate what is that thing that is so special that we can sell in those markets. And that includes IP, not exclusively. And then helping them articulate a pitch to the specific business partners that could take advantage of that specialty. And some of them, they are geared to find end clients, but as a project, we're looking for long-term partnerships. So we would love to have dealers there, joint ventures, technology transfers. And in those elements, with the support of the IPR helps there, we help them make sure that they have all the boxes ticked before they go in terms of the IP protection. And not only IP protection, I mean, value, being able to commercialize the IPs.
Yeah. Yes. So when I was I used to live in Cambodia for a bit, and the first thing they told me when I arrived is if I had a cold, I should not go to certain pharmacies. Just one of them had non-counterfeited products, so which is it's very dangerous. Obviously, it's a health hazard. So. So what are the main challenges you see in each? What are the main IP problems that you find in your members, your own experience for each region? Which are these anecdotes that everybody remembers of finding counterfeits, how to deal with them?
In my line, once again, trademarking is like an insurance. We hope we never need to use it. So we are waiting. If someone tries to use our name, our brand, our algorithms, we'll have the legal means to go after them. But I hope I'll never need to use. I've never seen that before. It's not easy to go to a fair or to some place like or Google and search for my product and see someone selling it. That does not happen. But in case it happens, it does, I'm protected.
Yeah.
I have this insurance.
Do you do active search or monitoring?
Systematically, no. But I'm gaining awareness that it's mandatory to do that.
Yeah, Google search from time to time does help.
Yes.
Or a trip.
Google search.
Yeah, Google search
It's easier.
is cheaper also. So what about the others, like horror stories?
It happened in the past, I must say. The things have changed dramatically the past 5 years. As you know, now China is the second patent applicant on the planet for international patents.
Indeed.
So because it's in their interest to protect their invention, and because it's their interest, to sell their product outside China now, they are a little bit more careful about IP protection and IP respect. This, I really saw it. The mid-2000s, it started to change, and since 5, 6, 7 years now, it's a dramatic change in China. So, on another hand, when we talk about specialty drugs, biotech drugs, it's pretty complex processes.
Yes.
So it's difficult to counterfeit. It's pretty difficult. But I saw it on some monoclonal antibodies, on some EPO, on some pretty easy recombinant proteins. But now we don't see it anymore.
To have good experience.
It's marginal. It's really marginal.
Do you have a program to monitor your products?
Not only with Google.
Yeah, not only with Google.
We have patent attorneys work on databases the whole year. I'm a paranoid. So
yeah. It's good to be here.
I think the biggest challenge is really that we all want to protect all the time. It's what we see here. I mean, copycats are very important, and you have to have a strategy that if somebody's copying you, that you go after them. But I think what we may have to learn in Europe really is to work together, to have more open innovation, to find partners in universities, in other companies, to really battle against that more and more innovations come out of other countries, come out of China. And I think the strength is here really in Europe that we can all work together from different countries and really from different institutions. But I think that's something that we have to learn, because we really just always think about protect my territory, protect my product, and not so much who could be a natural partner, where can I do open innovation. And I think we have that advantage that we have learned in Europe over the last 50, 60 years to work together. And let's just use that to be more innovative and not think about like, how can I protect more and more and more? It's more like that you have to open up and work together. I think that's the challenge that we are facing, and we have the head start.
More Europe seems like a good message.
Sorry.
Sure.
I'm sorry, I just need to apologize. I'm going to leave now. I would like to thank you very much for the interesting session. I suppose there may be questions, and people are in very good hands here, but if there's any questions specifically targeted at us, please feel free to share my details.
Yeah, sure.
And thank you very much again for the opportunity. Lovely
Yeah,
to meet
sure.
you. Sorry.
So we could open the floor to questions, or because you have to go too.
I have to leave,
Yeah. So I don't know if there's a microphone somewhere.
I think I can make it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hi, my name is Igor Kalinis. I'm from Ahmed from European Commission. I have a quick question for you. So, I mean, we've been talking about European companies and what European problems they face going mentioned this a little bit trickier market. But what about companies from the United States or Japan or other advanced countries, Canada going there? How are they facing from your experience? Do they have the same problems? I mean, they're growing. That cannot be an excuse, right?
No, Japanese are facing the same problem as we do. It's not the case indeed for Canada and the US, but I told you why. Because the private and public stock market in the US is more is clearly more depth. It's clearly bigger. So access to funding, it's pretty completely different.
I was talking about IPR problems in China.
Sorry. Yes, of course. Obviously, they are facing very exactly the same problems.
What may be the difference is that US companies and also Canadian companies are used to spend more money on IP and on enforcing IP. For them, it's easier to spend a few $100 dollars in China and then also going after infringers in China. That's more difficult.
If I may ask one question following up this, because you were mentioning about having your trademark as an insurance, but actually, if you need to enforce it as an SME, if you need to enforce your right, being a trademark, copyright, whatever, in a foreign market, are you as an SME able to do it, or is it just a void right that you are holding?
No, if I need to do it, I will do it.
But you have, because is it not a problem really for SMEs to litigate in foreign markets? Is it still an issue or not at all? You are still able to do it?
No, it depends on the maturity of your presence in the market. It was talked here often and often, but it's not enough to stress this out. You have to get a strong local partner. And that guy will help you if you need to. It will help entering the market, it will help defend yourself, it will help you get the right person to help you defending your rights. Okay. In our case, we had that problem in Mexico. Someone stole our brand in the process while we were registering it. And without the help of the local partner, 4 years wouldn't be enough to solve that. It would take a lot more. So we enforced our rights.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Okay, so I think that, well, thank you all for all your insights, but one of the things that I have the feeling that it's kind of key when we're looking at European SMEs, well, without even discussing what's what's a real SME, I mean the definition sometimes, because even if we're looking at America or we have a lot of companies here, I mean, I think talking about the US, because it came, I think it makes a huge difference when we're talking about an SME that just got created or crafted, only in Europe, or when we have an SME that has been funded by Alphabet or Facebook or Amazon or a big US corporation. So even if we go to that, we can even discuss whether what are we talking about when we're talking about SMEs. And I think we're referring to the first ones, no? So, and sometimes one of the main problems that I think, well, I have seen in my experience, which is not that long, but is that something that I think Professor Bastian, Dr. Bastian, you mentioned before, that companies in Europe, in difference with the US or Canada, they tend not to allocate any budget for IP at all when they draft their business plan. It's like, why should we? And that's a huge mistake from the very beginning, but because you are not aware. Same as you're not aware of what I think Jon Echanove mentioned before. Let's jump. Let's take the international jump. I mean, there was a huge crisis if we look at the Southern European countries here, and one of the reasons, for instance, to have a lot of internationalization from Italy, Spain, Portugal in the food and industry sector, in Latin America, for instance, and many other countries, it's because, well, we have a huge crisis here, people cannot afford the products, let's go abroad. But people didn't think about it. So I think that maybe it's a message both ways. For the SMEs is to actually seriously consider that when you're drafting your business plan, part of the budget needs to be allocated to get the right advice and the strategy, because maybe when we're talking about software, I mean, I know it's very difficult, but maybe there are other ways that are not trademarks, that are more based on copyrights or contractual agreements that can actually protect you, and be that insurance that you might not need to use. But from the political or the regulatory side, it's also, I think, important to know, okay, so we need to create that awareness and to take the hand in a way, not hold the hand, but kind of push these people into the right path, into the right direction, so then they can do it on their own.
Yeah, so those kind of guidelines are helpful. And once again, referring to the help that the help desk has given me, I had a problem with escrow depositing software in Europe. I contacted the help desk and they gave me a hand. They guided me in the path, then they took off the hand and I took my own way and I accomplished it. But that's me. I'm aware of the existence of the help desk. Is all SMEs, not only SMEs, but every corporation or every organization aware of the existing of such an entity? Do they know that there is someone who can guide them in the correct path? I think that's a real problem that exists today. Not only in Portugal, not only in countries that need to export, but in countries that naturally export and could better protect themselves. Okay.
Yeah, sure. Visibility is important for our work because our point is to help navigate. Obviously, we don't register or we don't draft contracts for sure. We just are this first step where, as you say, we help you navigate, and then we let you go with then a lawyer probably that will make this work concrete. But yeah, it's important that SMEs, non-SME universities are aware of our services and for sure aware of the information that it's online.
And nowadays, it's in software industry. It's very, very easy to export.
Yeah,
you just place your software on the cloud, and it's automatically exported.
Yeah, it's for sure. It's the fastest industry than pharma compared to, because we were comparing both. But yeah, sure. I don't know if this up.
I have a question for the panelists. Is that when I work with companies, the impression I have is that they often don't want to pay. This is the problem. They don't want to deal with the lawyers, having to pay at the beginning. They feel it's not needed. And first of all, what I usually do, because it's also part of my interest as help desk, it's advertising that our service is free, and on the other hand, that it saves you money for the future. Even if at one point you have to pay for registration, for patent, for a lawyer that follows you step by step, it saves you money in the future. My question is also this your point? I mean, you agree with that, or you feel also that maybe the companies are a little bit right in saying, no, I don't want to spend this money now. I don't care about. What do you think? When is the right moment, in your opinion, in your experience, to actually invest in the IP?
It depends on the state of development you are in. But once again, in our case, we have invested so far as little as possible on IP. Trademark, registration, brands, verbal agreements, NDAs, patent lawyers for creating the contracts, and so on. But we do have budget allocated to IP management. The question is, are we using correctly that budget? Can we use it better? After today's session, I think so. There are a lot of free services, free guides that we can use that would better guide us in using our budget that we have allocated to that. But how much is an enough budget? It also depends on what you want to do. Do you want to trademark to register everything in all countries? Do you want to create, as our colleague said, in countries that have the capability to replicate what you do? Or do you want to have a general sense of protection? Sometimes that sense of protection, it's non-existing, it's vapor. You think you are protected, but you are not. That was the case for trademark. If I do not continuously search for it, someone may already have copied mine. That's interesting to know. But so if I want to pay someone to continuously monitor these kind of things, or I hire someone to my team to do that, or I hire a specialized office to that, but that costs money. And I know for sure that Portuguese companies, and I think it's overall in all countries, they are not aware of that need.
I think there are really two limiting factors. One is money and the other one is time. I mean, very often it's also the time, because if you just go back to management and say we need 10,000, 50,000 to do this, you don't have an explanation. And I think the important thing is that you also put in time. And that may be something for your clients or for the people that ask you. Have you in a way spent a few hours thinking about that? Where is your competitive edge? Where is your unique selling point? How are you protecting that? And then think about how much money you're prepared to spend for it, and not start with the money at the beginning. Because that's easier. You're telling them filing in China is that and that amount, and then you have to pay for attorney's fees. They're saying, oh, rather not spend the money. So maybe don't start with the money, but start with how much time are you actually spending on that?
On what extent do you want your protection?
Yes, just really thinking about your strategy and how much your strategy is protected.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because also your time is valuable in the IP Helpdesk. And so it's not just about money, it's also how much time are you prepared. It's not that much time that you have to invest.
No.
And are you sure that 10,000 or 50,000 or 30,000 are enough? You don't.
That's the reason, don't play the money game, play the explanation game. What do I want to achieve? And then you can say, to achieve that, you have to pay that. And then I think a businessman can or a businesswoman can understand, does it make sense?
Yep.
But if you're just saying 50K, is that a lot of money for you? Yeah, that's a lot of money for me.
Yes, I agree. I think that the problem is not to build the business case for protecting or for having identify your what makes you special. I like that. I mean, and that is your business. This is not about your protecting. That's your business, and how much time are you willing to invest to identify what your business, and then decide what's your strategy to make business out of that idea. And maybe it's not every country, but you don't have to protect every country. Maybe you don't have enough to protect all those elements that make you special. Maybe some line of it. But if a person doesn't see the business case behind the IP element, then it goes only to money. And if it's only money, there are other things that you can use the money for. Yeah. Then why don't we do another marketing campaign? Why don't we send a guy? So competing in money is complicated. In the business case, I think it's easier. Do I have the impression that companies are reluctant to pay? I think I come back to the opportunistic element, and you can't be protected everywhere, and you can't do that. So there's a point where someone has to make a decision of risk. Now, I'm going to test Singapore. I'm not going to do anything about it because I don't have the money. Now, the problem is, are you killing yourself in the long term for your business case? That's the thing. I mean, and I think that companies should at least look, try to minimize the risk as much as you can. I mean, because it's not just about being copied, it's about your capacity to survive in that market long term. And if that market is important for you to grow, you might be spoiling that opportunity. If you don't care about that market, then the question is not whether you should protect your IP in that market, it's whether you should go to that market at all. Yeah.
So good messages all around about strategy, about business partnership, the importance of it. And yeah, so this is the end of our panel today. It was very interesting. Thank you so much for your time.